Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 18th July. The news items picked up from the Hindu newspaper are these 14. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, highest voter turnout ever for presidential elections. So we knew the presidential elections were due and they have been conducted now. We have already discussed about how presidential elections are conducted. We'll just have a quick look through it once again. So here you can see the presidential elections had the highest voter turnout ever, with almost 99% in some states. So here you can see the details. The electoral college you should know about the president means who are the members who elect the president. That is called the electoral college for election of the president. So this comprises of 776 MPs and 4,120 MLAs. So MPs means members of parliament, members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and you should know it is the elected members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, not the nominated ones. They are not part of the electoral college. They don't vote for the president because anyway they are nominated by the president himself. And then MLAs, members of Legislative Assembly of each state, and also the two union territories which have a Legislative Assembly means Delhi and Puducherry. They all vote, all elected members again vote for the election of president. So this is given. The total value of votes you can see comes up to 10,98,903. So the value of vote of MPs and MLAs is different. We'll see that too. So this actually means that there is 50% weightage given to MPs votes, total value of votes of all MPs, and 50% weightage is for MLAs. Means total value of votes of all MPs should be equal to total value of votes for all MLAs. Means both have 50-50 say in the election of the president at the national level and all states together. So that is how it is done. So this is the value of votes as such too. And then the president's eligibility you should know. He should be a citizen of India. He should have completed at least 35 years of age and he should be qualified for election as a member of Lok Sabha. These are the qualifications mentioned in the Constitution under Article 1, Article 58. Then can be other provisions also made for it. The election, of course, is conducted by the Election Commission of India itself. Of course, the removal of the president is through the process of impeachment, and there has been no impeachment of any president of India so far. And this is the system of proportional representation which is used for elections of the president. So the elected candidate, there can be number of candidates who are standing for the post of the president. So the candidate which has more than 50% of the votes wins. So how will that be? So there can be more than two people, 3, 4, 5 people standing for elections of the president. So in that case, what happens is that single transferable vote system is used. Means the vote which is done, each candidate votes, means every MP, every MLA votes, and vote is given in order of preference. So you can see here it's written, the voter can cast his vote to as many candidates as he desires in the order of his preference. So you can say if there are 5 candidates, then every member in the electoral college can vote that first preference so and so, second preference so and so, 3, 4, 5, as many as they want to. So they can give the order of preferences. So in the first round of counting of the votes, only the first preference is seen for all candidates. So if say A, B, C, D, E, if there are suppose 5 candidates standing for elections for the president's post, then each candidate will get a percentage share of votes. In the first round, if anybody is getting 50% plus votes, then that candidate is elected as a president. There is no need of any more round. But none of the 5 candidates is getting 50% plus votes, then there is a need for second round. So in the second round, actually the candidate amongst the 5 which got the least number of votes is out of the race. And all those members of the electoral college who gave him the first preference, their second preference is seen and that is added up in the for the remaining 4 candidates who are there. So now again it is checked if any one of them have got 50% plus votes, it's over. The elections counting is over. If not, then a third round is required. Again, the last candidate, the 4th candidate in the terms of the number of votes gained, the last means the 4th candidate is eliminated and their votes are added up for the remaining. So that depends on the order of preference which has been provided, and eventually the candidate who gets 50% plus votes is declared the president. So this is how presidential elections take place. System of proportional representation with a single transferable vote system. Then the next news item is GM mustard policy. Supreme Court gives government time. So yesterday we discussed everything about GM mustard, DMH11. So this is the Dhara mustard hybrid variety. So this DMH11, which has been developed in India by Delhi University agro scientist Mr. Deepak Pental. So here we see that GM mustard DMH11 has been given approval by GAC, Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee. That is part of the Environment Ministry, but post that too, the Environment Minister himself should also give a go-ahead. So that is pending for GM mustard, and a case is also going on in the Supreme Court as we discussed. So now the news which comes forth is that the Supreme Court has asked the government to decide by when will it be having its policy finalized for GM mustard. The petition as such is arguing that government is hastening the commercial release of GM mustard. So this is because even the GM mustard DMH11 project was a government funded project. So that's what another agro scientist had highlighted, that GAC's approval is actually a conflict of interest. So this is the case here. So to petition is arguing against GM mustard, and the government has assured in the Supreme Court that all public opinions would be taken in, objections to GM mustard would be studied, and then finally a decision on GM mustard would be taken. So now the Supreme Court has asked how soon will the government decide on this policy. So it has asked the government to report back in 1 week. You can see, granted the government, Supreme Court has granted the government 1 week to report back on when the policy would be finalized, the policy on GM mustard crop. So this policy decision is pending. So this is there. So the court had in October 2016 put a stay. Already there was a stay on commercial release of GM mustard. So that was extended until further orders. So there is a stay on commercial release of GM mustard. The government has to give its final policy. So the government arguments would also come forth. The petitioner as such alleges that the government is sowing GM mustard without relevant tests. Also, this is the fact that biosafety dossiers are developed. If GAC has given its approval, it's based on the tests and the relevant data. So this biosafety dossier, it has already given a go-ahead, but this biosafety dossier has not been made public yet. Otherwise, it is expected to be put up on the website, open to the public. So this has not been done yet. That is why there are concerns being raised and there are reasons to have apprehensions. So this is the status of GM mustard presently. So here you can see the only genetically modified crop which is allowed in the country is BT cotton, which was introduced in India in 2002. But this is not an edible crop. So GM mustard, if approved, would be the first edible crop to be allowed. But there are other GM crops also which are under field trials in the country, like corn, soya. BT brinjal was at one point in news. So GAC had approved BT brinjal too. So that's when it all started. In 2009 itself, GAC had approved BT brinjal for commercial cultivation, but then this decision was overturned by Ministry of Environment and Forest. The Environment Minister put an indefinite moratorium on GM crops. Since it said that first public consultations should be done, there is insufficient safety data on BT brinjal, and once sufficient data comes forth and public confidence is there, after public consultations, BT brinjal can be approved. So a moratorium was put, and after that even the Supreme Court, as we have seen, had put a stay as such on GM mustard. So this is there. Then the next news item is eco bridges for the movement of tigers. So this is regarding eco bridges which will be connecting regions between Maharashtra and Telangana. So it is regarding the Tadoba Andhri Tiger Reserve of Maharashtra in the Chandrapur district, which borders Telangana. So in Telangana's forest region here in Kumram Bhim, Asifabad district here, are contiguous. So but then there is a canal which is flowing over it. So what would be done is that eco-friendly bridges would be constructed over the canal. Means there will be fertile soil laid down here to allow grass and plants to grow over the structure, so that this fragmented forest is actually camouflaged. So there are fears of this pristine forest along the corridor also undergoing large-scale destruction. So this connectivity has been provided as an initiative here, which was suggested by Wildlife Board of India experts themselves. So here You can see Wildlife Board of India and Wildlife Institute of India experts had visited this region and suggested this. So these will be eco-friendly bridges over the canals constructed. So even Tadoba Andhri Tiger Reserve actually has multiplication of tiger population taking place speedily. So here that is why there is frequent migration of these tigers to the adjoining region in Telangana, and this eco-friendly bridge would facilitate that. Then the next news item is annual Anayuttu festival celebrated. So this Anayuttu is a festival to feed the elephants. So this is celebrated every year. It comes in the month of July itself. So it's actually the first day of the month of Karikaddam of the Malayalam calendar. So it coincides with the month of July as such. So this feeding of elephants festival is conducted in this Vadakunnathan temple of Thrissur district in Kerala. So this is an old Shiva temple, one of the oldest Shiva temples in South India. So this festival as such, feeding of elephants, there are elephants positioned as such here, and multiple number of people come and worship and feed these elephants. So it is considered as a way to satisfy Lord Ganesha, the god of wealth and fulfillment of wishes. So this is the festival celebrated here in this Shiva temple in Kerala, Vadakunnathan. So this is Anayuttu. Even you should remember in March 2017 there was a similar festival with respect to elephants which we had discussed. That was Anaval Pidi festival. So this Anaval Pidi festival is in another temple in Kerala. This is Bala Subramanya Swami temple of Kerala. So here in this festival the Anaval Pidi is catching the elephant's tail. So this is a ritual which is conducted. So an elephant is there which is chased by devotees in an area of around 100 square meters. So they have to catch the tail. So temple authorities have said that this is a ritual which is going back for ages. For the past 1500 years that this is being celebrated. It was in news even because of the other festivals with respect to bull taming and bull chasing festival, buffalo racing festival. If you remember, these were the festivals of Jallikattu and Kambala festival of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka respectively. So during that time, Anaval Pidi had also come forth in news. So but the temple authorities here say that this is a festival going on for past 1500 years, and this gets over in a minute. It's only in a 100 square meter region that the devotees chase an elephant to catch its tail. So this is there, and they say this is a symbolic gesture of in the replicating the childhood prank of god siblings Ganesha and Balasubramanya Swami. So this is Anaval PD. Right? Then the next news item is Centre seeks debate in Supreme Court on Jammu and Kashmir special status. So this is a case going on before the Supreme Court, a petition which has been filed, a PIL filed by this Delhi-based NGO, We the Citizens. So it is questioning the Jammu and Kashmir government's rights which it has because of the state's special status under Article 370 of the Constitution. So Article 35A and 370 confer this special status to Jammu and Kashmir government, and they say that the petition says that this is discriminatory against non-residents as far as government jobs and real estate, buying of property is concerned in Jammu and Kashmir. So that is a petition filed as such, and the government here in the Supreme Court is arguing that there is a need to debate on the special status granted to Jammu and Kashmir as such. So this is both sensitive matter and a constitutional matter, and that needs debate. So the Supreme Court has allowed for a 3-judge bench which will look into this matter. So that has been the decision as such taken. So it's actually the state government of Jammu and Kashmir also arguing in this matter, saying that the special status which has been conferred on Jammu and Kashmir is based on the 1954 presidential order which gave special rights to Jammu and Kashmir residents. It also says that Article 370 of the Constitution is actually permanent. This has been the argument put forth by Jammu and Kashmir High Court recently. It has ruled that Jammu and Kashmir has permanency of this special status, means the special status under Article 370 assumes permanence in the Constitution because this article had to be amended or repealed by the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, and the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir dissolved without recommending either amendment or repeal or provision of Article 370 as such. So now Article 370 becomes permanent. So that is the argument in which, or the order or the viewpoint of Jammu and Kashmir High Court. Again, you should know Jammu and Kashmir High Court has also been established under Jammu and Kashmir's own constitution. Jammu and Kashmir is the only state which has its own constitution. So this is there. So now a debate would take place in the Supreme Court regarding special status of Jammu and Kashmir. So all this we have already discussed in detail, the whole history on 6th of July. So you can look at that news item, the video as such, to get the details about the entire history of Jammu and Kashmir and the special status and its consequences. Then the next news item is China holds live fire drills opposite Arunachal amid border standoff. So China is escalating its standoff with India now. It has conducted live fire exercises, drills in Tibet, close to the Arunachal Pradesh frontier as such. China-India frontier in Arunachal Pradesh means it is saying that China is giving a message that it is ready to open up another frontier. Presently, the dispute which is going on is in Sikkim region. So the Sikkim state is one region, the Doklam area, where there is a dispute presently. It's actually a dispute between China and Bhutan, and India has stationed its troops here on behalf of Bhutan, and China is claiming that India should take back its troops. So that is the whole issue. And Bhutan India close relations, the treaty of friendship which we have, provides us this close relation and a responsibility on India too to ensure defense of Bhutan as well. So that is there. And plus, apart from that, with respect to Arunachal Pradesh too, Arunachal Pradesh is completely claimed by China. The 1962 war between India and China was also on the ground that Arunachal Pradesh is belonging to China. Arunachal Pradesh is called in China as South Tibet. So this is the term which is used by China for Arunachal Pradesh. So now that's what it is stated, that this exercise has been conducted in this region. So of course then another thing is that this exercise has been defensive, means trying to counter an attack. So the purpose of the entire exercise, or the steps which were taken, the exercises which were undertaken, were essentially defensive in nature. So that is also one aspect. And it has also been a close region close to this Yalung-Zangbo river. Yalung-Zangbo, again you should know, this is a river which flows into India after taking a complete U-turn, and here it is known as Brahmaputra river. So Brahmaputra river, before it enters into India, it is known as Yalung-Zangbo in China, and then it becomes Siang and Brahmaputra river. So here it's a sharp U-turn which it takes, a sharp fall which is there. This is called the Great Bend, a U-pin turn which it is there, and this is a steep drop as such of the river too. It is a drop of around 3,000 meters or approximately 200 kilometers as such. So here you can see this. This is the Yalung-Zangbo river, and here it takes a U-turn and enters into India. And here China has its dams constructed on Yalung-Zangbo. Presently also we are seeing Brahmaputra's fury in Assam, where the flood situation is quite grim. So this is a river which we share. We are the downstream nation here, India as well as Bangladesh. After India, Brahmaputra flows into Bangladesh and then drains into Bay of Bengal. So that is there. So even construction of dams is actually a controversy, as we see between India and Pakistan too. So China, when it constructs dams here, the thing is that with dams, water flow is restricted, and water flow, once the dams gates are opened, water flow can take place as such too. So China, based on its decision, it will open and close the gates of the dams. So that would affect the downstream flow. So that is also one more aspect which you should know here. Then the next news item is Malabar 2017, spectacular end to naval drill. So we have already seen about Malabar exercise too. This is now a trilateral exercise between India, USA and China. So this was recently conducted. It has culminated as such in the Bay of Bengal, around 90 miles away from Chennai coast. So this had USS Nimitz, which is a nuclear powered ship of USA, and India's aircraft carrier INS Vikramaditya, and even Japan's helicopter carrier and its largest warship JS Izumo. They all stood side by side in a symbolic maneuver, ending the Malabar exercise here. So this was one of the largest exercises conducted in the Bay of Bengal, and it has been quite often reiterated, this is not an exercise aimed at China, but rather it is an exercise with the objective of upholding freedom of movement and enforcing the rule of law and address common maritime challenges in the region. So of course, China asserts its presence, especially in the South China Sea. So Bay of Bengal is the region close to India here. So this aspect, the connectivity as such to some extent is there, but China has raised its voices that such exercises are targeted against it, and there should not be large number of nations coming together here conducting joint exercises. But the nations here say that the joint exercises help us to work together and work together in any case of any attack or even of a disaster strikes, major disaster strikes. The interoperability and understanding the operation of each other helps in working together for the forces. So that is the objective of the exercise. But then China has its apprehensions, and it is claimed that it is not targeted against China. Then the next news item is higher outlay on health needed. So this is actually a study which has been undertaken and published in the Lancet journal. So this says that the sustainable development goals for health, if they have to be achieved, then the low and middle income countries, there are around 67 low and middle income countries, they have to have additional 371 billions invested per year so that these goals are achieved by 2030. Or rather, even $58 per person as such would be an investment needed to achieve the goals. So this is called Sustainable Development Goals Health Price Tag. So these 67 low middle income countries account for 75% of the world's population too. So this is regarding sustainable development goals. You should know these were announced by the United Nations after the Millennium Development Goals ended. So Millennium Development Goals were announced at the turn of the millennium for 2000 to 2015. So they had to be achieved by 2015. So post Millennium Development Goals from 2015 to 2030, the target which has been set is for these Sustainable Development Goals, which are much more elaborate than Millennium Development Goals. Under MDG, there were 8 goals as such, and here in SDGs, we have 17 specific goals listed here. So you can see them. These are the 8 Millennium Development Goals too. And the ones which we are studying presently and discussing is with respect to health. So this one is with respect to health is reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, and combat HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other diseases. So these were the 3 Millennium Development Goals with respect to health. And now under the Sustainable Development Goals, we have good health and well-being as one of the important goals here. So under these also there are specific targets which have to be achieved. You can see there are 17 goals presently, and they have 169 targets amongst them overall. Integrated along 3 dimensions of sustainable development. And in Millennium Development Goals, we had 8 separate goals for development as such. And Millennium Development Goals were specifically targeted for developing countries. And SDGs have a universal tone. These are for all countries. And they were from the UN Secretariat as such coming forth, and the Sustainable Development Goals have been negotiated by member states with strong country ownership too. And here the means of implementation, monitoring, follow-up, that was not defined in advance, but for SDGs, this has been provided for. So intergovernmentally negotiated means of implementation has been provided for. A global architecture and monitoring system has also been shaped for sustainable development goals. So that is here. You can see the voluntary review also which is taking place, where India is also participating for putting forth its sustainable development goals before the United Nations. So that is an exercise going on too. So here you can see this is the sustainable development goals and health. So the goal 3, which is on health, it focuses on maternal and child health, AIDS, TB, malaria, and neglected tropical diseases, non-communicable diseases, their prevention and treatment, substance abuse, injuries, as well as universal health coverage and financial risk protection. So these are parts of the sustainable development goals. So if these have to be achieved, then there is a requirement of this much investment by these low and middle income countries is highlighted. Even the report says that the higher investment in health means these 67 countries should increase the present investment in health as a proportion of GDP to at least 5.6 to 7.5%. So from 5.6 it should go to 7.5% as such. But in India, the spending on health as percentage of GDP is only 1.09%, which is amongst the lowest in the world. So this is a concern in India as well, health spending. Then the next news item is Indonesia renames part of South China Sea. So Indonesia has renamed the northern areas of its exclusive economic zone in the South China Sea as North Natuna Sea. So this is in defiance against Beijing's territorial ambitions in South China Sea, which we have discussed quite often. Beijing has this island province Hainan here, and it claims almost the entire South China Sea based on this 9-dash line which it draws in the waters here in South China Sea. So there are contesting claims by various nations, not just Indonesia, but also Vietnam, Taiwan, Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia have their claims in South China Sea, and they overlap with the claims made by China. So this is there. Philippines in 2011 had also done a similar exercise. It had renamed the waters adjoining it as West Philippines Sea in defiance against Beijing, and also it had taken this territorial dispute to the Permanent Court of Arbitration and International Arbitration at The Hague, Netherlands. So here in the ruling also came in July 2016. We have discussed this also, and the tribunal, the Permanent Court of Arbitration, ruled in favor of Philippines and concluded that China has no legal basis to claim historical rights to the bulk of the South China Sea. But then the Chinese response to this ruling of International Court of Arbitration has been that it has no jurisdiction, and the ruling is a farce and it does not apply to China. So China has not accepted. Of course, the arbitration tribunal does not have any ways to enforce its ruling as such. And this is the 9-dash line, the red line which you see. This is China's claim. This is Hainan Island province of China, and this is a 9-dash line which China claims. And these are the UN clause up to 200 nautical miles EEZ, which each of these nations, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, Philippines, claim. So this is there. The Spratly, Paracel Islands and the Scarborough Shoal are located here. So there are oil reserves here. Important sea routes pass through this region, and that is the reason why China claims this region. Plus it has also started developing artificial islands over the coral reefs which are present here. The developing islands even launch, helipad launches as such too, which are possible. Such islands are being developed by China in this region. So this is the dispute, South China Sea dispute. Then the next news item is Gujarat High Court denies relief to SR Steel in insolvency case. So again, we have discussed yesterday itself about Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code and the National Company Law Tribunal again. So that's what it is. When you are preparing current affairs on a regular basis, the same news comes quite often. So then your revision is also taking place along with it. So 1 year's current affairs is not an accumulation of huge amount of information and load on you, but rather it is quite a lot of repetition, and that enhances your study, and the revisions are also inbuilt in this process. So again, if you're referring to current affairs daily, this is the advantage which you have, that you don't have to memorize things later. You already will know about them because of doing them again and again in context, in news, in the context of the news. So this is regarding Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So under this, we have seen that action has been initiated after RBI's powers were enhanced through an ordinance. Banking Act amendment was done through an ordinance, and after this enhanced powers, RBI has initiated action against 12 firms which have more than 5,000 crore as outstanding loan. So each of them has been referred to under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So after this action, which has been announced as such, the SR Steel, one of the 12 entities which have such outstanding loans, its loans are more than 5,000 crore as such in all. So it has approached the Gujarat High Court asking that this categorization which has been done by RBI is arbitrary and it should be nullified. But the Gujarat High Court has announced, given its order, that there is nothing arbitrary in RBI's directive as such. RBI is within its powers to initiate such proceedings. The SR Steel, as the company as such, claims that these NPAs, which are being called NPAs by RBI, because asset quality review, as we saw, has also been done. So the SR Steel claims that we are having negotiations with our lenders and we are coming through with a solution. And by announcing this and declaring us as an NPA, it is resulting in a solution becoming impossible then. So it's making it difficult. So this is the argument which the company is putting forth, but the Gujarat High Court says that the RBI has all authority to initiate such a proceeding and refer the SR Steel case to National Company Law Tribunal, and the National Company Law Tribunal will take a decision based on the facts as such. So the expert views would be taken forth here, and the SR Steel has accepted this order of Gujarat High Court, and they say that we will have our arguments before the National Company Law Tribunal now. So this is the announcement as such. So the Gujarat High Court order said that RBI has the power to have such elections done, but it should be not discriminatory. Means it should be same for all. So that is also what the Gujarat High Court stated. And RBI, as we have seen, even while arguing before Gujarat High Court too, had announced that the gross NPAs in India have aggregated to more than 7,28,768 crores, which comes up to 5% of the GDP of the country as of March 2017. So this is the status of NPAs as such too, and this is 12% of the total advances of public sector banks. Means NPAs account for 12% of total advances. So that's a huge burden on the public sector banks. Then here actually this is the differentiation which you should understand. This also we had done earlier. So a differentiation between these terminologies. What is stressed asset, what is non-performing asset, and what is written off asset and restructured loan. So you should understand this. So actually stressed asset is a term which includes all three. So if you say stressed assets of a bank, means the non-performing assets of the bank, the restructured loans, as well as written off assets. So non-performing assets are those assets. The definition as such for an NPA is that if the principal amount and or the interest is not repaid by the borrower during a specific time period, in India it is 90 days. So in 90 days means around 3 months, if the interest or principal amount payment is not coming forth, then that asset is classified as a substandard asset, doubtful asset, or a non-performing asset. So this is a non-performing asset. A restructured asset is that asset for which some adjustment is done. Means it is not, payment is not coming forth. So then maybe an extended repayment period is allowed, or the interest rate is reduced as such. Some provision is made. A part of the loan is converted into equity. So anything which is done to ensure that the asset does not become non-performing. Even additional financing can be provided, that the company is not able to repay because it is not yet viable. There is a little more funding required. So maybe additional financing can help. So any such step taken, then that asset becomes a restructured asset. So this is there. So it does not come in the counting of NPAs, but when you count stressed assets, restructured loans are also added to NPAs. And the last category is written off assets. So these written off assets means the bank no longer counts that money as such in its balance sheet. But then it does not mean that the borrower has been pardoned or exempted from payment. But the banks in its financial statement are not having these loans mentioned. So they have been written off from the bank's financial sheets, not for the borrower. The borrower is still being asked to pay, because that is the status as such. It has been compensated for by the bank through some other means, the government funding coming forth or any other way in which it is loans have been written off. So those are written off assets, but still they are added up in the calculation of stressed assets. So this is there. Then the next news item is GST Council approves higher rates of cess for cigarettes. So GST Council, which we have been seeing for quite some time, we had been seeing when GST was being finalized. So this GST Council is chaired by the Finance Minister and has representatives, the Finance Ministers from all states, and they have had various meetings to decide on various aspects of GST, even on rates for each commodity, each goods, services, etc. So this was this 19th meeting, and the sole agenda of GST Council meeting presently was to decide on the cess rates for cigarettes. So cigarettes, for them, the GST rate is 28%, and a cess on top of this 28% GST, this is the compensation cess which we are seeing as is being imposed on the category of 28% luxury goods. So here's luxury goods and sin goods. So here the cess which has been imposed, it is generally 5% for various types of cigarettes, but for the maximum which it has put up is around 36%. So you can see 36% cess on the higher end of cigarettes has been imposed as such. So apart from 28% GST, a 36% cess has also been imposed. Then the next news item is payment bank FinoPayTech expects to become profitable in 2-3 years. So this is regarding payment banks. So these payment banks licenses were given by RBI in August 2015. So there were 11 companies who were given these license for payment banks. Now payment banks are banks which can take deposits, but they cannot give loans. And deposits also they can take maximum up to 1 lakh as a deposit. Also they cannot accept term deposits. So these 11 companies which were given in principle approval by RBI for setting up payment banks, out of these 3 have already dropped out because they said that it is not feasible, because if they are taking deposits and not giving loans, they cannot earn interest, then how would they function? So they had these they said that this business model would not work for them and they have opted out. These 3 are Tech Mahindra, Cholamandalam Finance, and Dilip Sanghvi IDFC Telenor joint venture. So these 3 have dropped out. So now there are 8 applicants who have in principle approval to set up payment banks, and many of them have established payment banks too. One of them is also India Post. So Airtel Money, Reliance Industries, even Vodafone M-Pesa, Fino Paytech, with whom this recent interview was conducted as such, which says that it will become profitable in 2 to 3 years. Even Vijay Shekhar Sharma, so this represents Paytm. Even Aditya Birla Nuvo. So all these NSDL have payment bank licenses. So this is the 11 mentioned here too. So these are the details regarding the payment banks given here too. So RBI says that they have a limit. They can accept demand deposits up to a maximum of 1 lakh. They cannot provide loans. They cannot accept term deposits. They have the deposits which they raise with them, they have to be invested in government bonds. 75% of this should be invested in government bonds, and a maximum of 25% can be invested in an account with another bank. So these are the payment banks. So the idea of having payment banks for the RBI, these are called differentiated banks. So banks for a particular purpose. So these are payment banks which are there only for accepting small deposits. There are small banks which are there for only providing small loans. So that is there. So here you can see the service charge as such is expected to come down because these banks will give competition to the already established banks. Even these banks, if the deposits will be low, then even the balance requirement for them would be low. So such basic accounts would be accepted by other existing banks also, is the expectation of RBI. So here you can see the details about payment banks and small banks is provided, who can promote them, what they should do, the requirements on them to, what they are allowed to do and what they are not allowed is provided here. So here they can give small loans as such. So this is the detail given here as such. You can see 75% deposit should be in government bonds for payment banks. 25% can be with other banks. Right? And also branches, 25% of branches should be in unbanked areas. Here also the 25% branches should be in unbanked areas, and for small banks there is a requirement that 75% of loans should be to the private sector, priority sector. So priority sector lending, which is there even for existing banks, which is like for the service, like for agriculture purposes or for education and other purposes. For such sections, the priority sector lending category has also been expanded quite often. So those lendings should be there. 75% loans should be for such purpose. So this is there. So they can give small loans only. They cannot extend large loans. These are the new bank licenses which RBI has provided recently to payment banks, to small finance banks. Many of the small finance banks licenses which have been given are to microfinance institutions. Right? And these are the 2 new private sector banks. IDFC Bank and Bandhan Bank are 2 new full-fledged private sector bank licenses which have been provided by RBI recently. Then the last news item is eco-friendly plastic. Anyone? So scientists have now developed eco-friendly plastic using lemon extract and carbon dioxide. So this limonene and carbon dioxide have been used to produce polycarbonates. So these polycarbonates would be formed from constituents which are both abundant and natural products. And the present plastic which is produced, this has as its precursor a highly toxic substance which is also considered as a potential carcinogen, means can be a cause for cancer. This is known as BPA, bisphenol A. So this is a major concern presently, though some countries like USA and UK say that bisphenol is not dangerous, but then there are countries like France, Denmark, Turkey which have banned use of BPA, at least in the production of baby bottles. So this, if limonene and carbon dioxide is used to form polycarbonates, then they would be free from BPA also. So this is a new eco-friendly plastic which has been developed by scientists here. So this is there. Also another feature of this limonene derived polymer is that it has highest glass transition temperature ever reported for any polycarbonate. So this means that it will require quite higher temperatures to melt such a plastic. Means it will be safer for everyday use. If you are heating it up also the plastic, it would be safer because its melting temperature would be high. So this is regarding BPA2, bisphenol A. So the products in which it is used and the properties because of which it helps in production of these, like for baby bottles, it makes bottles transparent, BPA. Even for non-disposable water bottles, it makes bottles shatterproof. It prevents corrosion, so it's used in food containers also. So this BPA is a concern here. So that is that if there are concerns, it can leach into food or beverages also if the plastic container as such is heated. So this is there. So these are the news items. Thank you.